let's move along here to what could be very, very interesting non-hand call. And we will go to Thomas. Hello, Thomas. You are up next, sir.
Hey, Bart, how you doing? Can you hear me all right?
I can. So, Thomas, in the email that you sent to me, so first of all, do you live in the Chicago area? Okay. So, in the email you sent to me, you said that you went to Hollywood Aurora, of course, which was the subject of that great call-in from a couple of weeks ago, where the guy's opponent on the turn basically called his turn bet and then checked blind on the river. And then when the hero checked behind in position on the river, the guy said, "No, I want to bet now." And it was ruled that it was a legal bet on a 4-flush board. So you said in the email that you went to investigate. Do you not normally go to this card room to play?
No, I usually play at Rivers in Des Plaines.
Okay.
Everyone at my table a few days before was talking about that video.
Uh-huh.
And I actually I own a construction business and we were doing a project out there. So I happened to be in Aurora and I decided to check it out.
Well, let me ask you this question too. You might not know the answer, but I was asked by many people at Encore where I went into, and I'm very hyper aware and cognizant now of, I don't want to blast out a room when a story isn't necessarily true. I found that gentleman very believable. He sounded like an older gentleman. He did not and I had asked him, I had gone back and forth with him quite a bit via email. I'm not just going to let somebody make up a story, right? So to the best of my knowledge and my sort of due diligence, I'm like, all right, I'm going to have this guy on. It sounds legitimate to me, but I'm hyper aware and I don't want to have anybody telling like lies about a place and hurt a place's reputation. What did the people at Aurora, did they think that happened? The story?
Yeah. So good question. So first of all, it's a really small room.
Uh-huh.
They told me that they only have 1 or 2 tables going at a time. And when I was there, they had 2 half full tables going and everyone appeared to be regulars. Everyone knew about the video.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone heard about it and the dealers heard about it, but not all of them had actually seen the video, but they had at least heard about it. And I did ask the table, I said, hey, is there a special rule here where you can check
in the dark and it's not binding?
Right. And they said no.
Okay.
And the player said no and the dealer said no. However, they have a weird setup there. So they don't really have a floor. Basically, the dealers themselves are the floor. So like, for example, they would deal for a half hour, then another dealer would sit in, and then the dealer that was off for a half hour would be the floor.
Right. That's what that guy sort of said too. He said he didn't call a supervisor, but or maybe I read in the comments, there's no supervisor to call, right? Per se. Yeah.
So I asked 2 dealers about it and they both said like, hey, if I had been dealing, that wouldn't have happened. But
okay.
They also didn't deny that it was possible. They said, hey, a player told me it is kind of the Wild West out there.
So it could even possibly be that like there was a dealer who took what he or she thought was the initiative of making the correct ruling, and then the floor person was just another dealer that ended up agreeing with the dealer.
Well, and then also some of the players said that it might have been just a regular there that the dealers didn't want to upset.
Okay. All right. So it sounds to me like some of the regulars think it's certainly possible that something like that might have happened. Okay.
Yes. They all thought it was possible.
Okay. So that leads, well, thank you for that investigation, Thomas. I appreciate that. That's that's like, real news on the ground. But you actually have a simple question for me, which when you were at Hollywood Aurora that you saw happen. So tell us what happened.
Yes, I was actually, so like I said, they had 2 half full tables. So my table was playing 4-handed. The other table was playing 5-handed. And at my table, I actually got it all in pre. I had ace king and the opponent had queens and he held. I lost the flip.
Okay.
And right after that hand, they told us that we were going to merge tables. We were going to combine. So our table would move over to the other table.
Okay.
And he had roughly $1,100 in his stack. And so I moved all my chips over to the other table, and he actually took $1,000 off the table and just bought into the other table for $100.
So why am I not surprised? So first of all, what's the size of the game? Is it 2-5?
No, it's 1-3.
It's 1-3. And what's the buy-in structure?
It's 100 minimum, 500 maximum.
So you're playing in two main tables, it sounds to me like, right? Or I guess it could have been, well, there's two different, it's like even worse in the other type of situation. So you're playing in two main tables and they converge into one. Had they said to you that you were playing in a must move game? Did they ever mention that, the term must move or anything like that?
No, it was not. It was not a feeder table. It was two main games.
Okay. So this is actually not quite as bad as I thought. So the way that, again, every casino has sort of their own rules. There isn't necessarily a set standard, but I would say 98, 99% of the time, what I see, especially coming from commerce where there were a ton of games, but there weren't many must-move games. When you play in rooms where there's only a couple of tables, a lot of times they'll have a must-move game that will protect the main game. Now, people be like, what the hell is a must-move game? A lot of people don't know what a must-move game is. So normally, usually when you have two tables, sometimes three, sometimes you'll go must-move to main. The best way to make sure that the games don't break is that you have one main table, which is the table that's been going for the longest, and then you have a must-move game where when somebody gets up from the main table, there is a list and people fill that seat with people that are in the must-move game, and there's an order by the way that you came. And then if you're on the board for that game, you go into the must-move game, you're on the list in order, and that's how you protect the main game. Now, you must take the exact amount of what you have from the must-move game over to the main game. You cannot rat hole. You're not supposed to go north if there's a cap. You're supposed to take exactly what you have from the must-move game into the main game. If they are multiple main games, this guy, George Riley, anybody can look. I used to call him Short Stack George. I think he's a sports betting pundit now too on Twitter. At Commerce, he would come in, he would buy in short for $500, move to the main game, like he'd double up, get a table change, then move back to the minimum, down to 500. He'd either double up or go broke, get a table change. Finally, they were like, you can only do that like once or twice within like a couple of hours or something like that. Most places, if you're going from a main game to a main game, it's like a brand new game. Like you can buy in from, in your case, 100 to 500. That's how it worked at Commerce's 510. If I got a table change from a main game to a main game, I actually couldn't bring, if I had like 5,000 in front of me and it was a $1,500 cap, I could not bring 5,000. I had to bring my cap down to 1,500, which was kind of annoying. They actually don't do that in Boston, which is nice if they ever have that. But it was like a brand new game. However, a broken table is something also that can be different. What you're describing is a broken table. A broken table, I don't know if you necessarily have the option to go back down to the minimum. If you were in a must-move game, you certainly wouldn't. If your two tables were full and you went on a table and the guy table changed, he could do that. But did you ask that? I mean, you don't want to sound like a dick, I guess. Yeah.
So actually, I called I guess you can call him the floor, which is basically just the off-duty dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically said the opposite. He said that if he changed tables, he would have to bring his whole stack. Since it was a broken table, he did.
That's really weird. So you say if he changed tables, he would have to bring his house. It's the exact opposite of what I was saying. That's funny.
Right. Yeah, the exact opposite. He said if both games were going and he wanted to change the team, he had to bring it all. But since it was a broken game, it was a forced move. And since it's a forced move, he combined for the minimum.
I mean, I think the way that I described it is like most places. I wouldn't like that's nowhere near in the same universe, the type of egregiousness of like the guy from a couple weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like, the fact that this guy can bring his, like, it's not going to kill the, it's not necessarily bad for the room. I suppose they could have that rule in that manner. I wonder if they ever do run like a must move. But like I said, from all places that I guess you were just a little bit, maybe you're rightly upset. Like you want to buy in for 500. The guy just beat you. Maybe he's a little bit of a fish. Like, why does he get to rat hole, right?
Well, yeah, I wasn't that upset. I've never actually seen it before where, changed tables with someone and I ended up at the same table as someone else, and then they tried to buy in for less. I wasn't sure if that was actually a real thing or not.
What, because of the because of the merge, you mean, of the table?
Yeah, so I usually play at Rivers. If like a table breaks, they're gonna send me to one of 30 tables. I'm probably not gonna be with any of my other opponents.
That's no one's ever gonna it's not gonna matter, right? Like,
Yeah, and whenever they have, I've always seen them come in with their full
right,
packs.
right.
Never been in a situation where I ended up at a table with someone who just busted me and bought in for less. So
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was just like a legit. Basically, I wanted to ask you.
I mean, here's the thing, like, I've never heard it that way. I've always heard that, like, if it's a actually, I'm gonna give you I don't know the answer. I don't know. I think it very well might be from room to room in terms of what the rules are for a quote unquote broken table. In all my years of experience, I know that if it was a must move, that you would have to bring exactly over. And for all my years of experience, actually, they do it like at Encore, like they do it at Aurora. It's a mix. If it's a table change, it's a mix. At Commerce, it's like a new game. You can only buy in within the limits if it's a table change. You're saying that's the opposite at Aurora. At Encore, I actually think that you might have the option in Boston, so it's a little bit of a hybrid. So I guess my point is that if they have that rule, I don't think it's anything that's crazy. Because it's like a broken game. I will tell you that there were a lot of people that used to go north in the Commerce game, the 1500 cap game. And one of the ways that you could do that, even though they didn't have many must move games, going north, of course, was going above the cap. One of the ways you could do that was that if you were in a must move game, so if there was a must move game and it was feeding like 5 or 6 main games, who's going to know that I only have 1500 in front of me, especially if I have like a lot of chips and I just like put on 1,000. Right? Because like I'm gonna go to one of 6 tables, like you sort of said, caller. Right? Like who knows what I have, right? No, that's interesting. I appreciate you, Tom. I appreciate you going and investigating. That's very interesting, and I wish I could give you a more clear-cut answer, but it sounds strange to me. But I don't think it's if they do it that way. I don't think it's anything that's insane. I guess is what I would say.
Okay,
Yeah.
good to know.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tom. I appreciate it.